Welcome back, my little subscribers. Today, it's a bittersweet video. I'm saying goodbye to my trusty 16 to 35 G Master version 1 for Sony. So overall, this lens has served me well at weddings, for video. I've recorded several videos on this channel with that lens. Just the versatility of going from 16 to 35, or when you're punching into super 35, going from 24 to 50 has just been so useful. But it's always left me wanting more. And I don't know if it's just because it's the fact it's a 2.8 and the fact that wider lenses don't give you as much separation at 2.8. Although at 35 you would get some decent separation shooting like at this distance. It's a great lens. I can't say anything bad about it. It's a great lens. It's sharp. It's weather sealed. It feels solid. It has delivered. It has never given up on me. But ever since the reason I got this lens was because I could not make up my mind on a focal length to use for video or photo when I needed something wider. And I know a lot of you out there might be having this challenge of, what do I pick? Is it a 20? Is it a 24? A 35? Like, what is the wide angle lens for me? But then what if that isn't wide enough? So that 16 to 35, or like Tamron 17 to 28, Sigma 16 to 28, or that new Sony 16 to 25. These lenses are aimed at providing you that flexibility of what if you need something wider. But I think I've gotten to the point in my photo experience now, and after usage of having this lens twice, actually, of it coming down to a couple of things. And maybe this can help you as well if you're trying to decide on whether you want a wide angle zoom or not. And let me share my thoughts with you. So the first thing is that question of what if it's not wide enough? I think that really depends on your environment. Like, what are you shooting? How much space do you have? In the case of a wedding, totally understandable. You'll be like up against a wall or something and you just know there's not enough space. But think about it this way as well. Even if there wasn't enough space, do you want to shoot at 16 millimeters? Is that the right focal length for that moment? Or should you take a step back, if you can, to use something different and get the composition and the look you want versus that ultra wide 16? So if you get what I'm saying, there have been times when I've been in situations for weddings where I had to shoot at 16, but I did not want that shot at 16, if you know what I'm saying. That's just not the look that I wanted. It had to be taken because that's the situation. But there are workarounds, and what I'm trying to get at is, if you learn to work around limitations with lenses, that's exactly what prime lenses do for us. It makes us get creative. How can we get this shot with this focal length because we want to deliver that specific look? So that's one thing. The second thing is, how wide is too wide? And I know this question might sound dumb, but you have to decide for yourself, how wide are you willing to go before the image doesn't look like what you want it to look? And for me, I feel like even 20 millimeters is sometimes pushing it, whereas 24 is probably the sweet spot for me as what the widest angle should be in the work that I do. So upon getting the 24 G Master 1.4, which I'm shooting with right now, I've had this lens twice, and I've had the same dilemma because of this situation, trying to decide between a zoom lens or a prime. 24, in my opinion, is probably the widest I want to go. And a lot of people out there might want to go because this lens actually very low distortion. It's probably at the limit of before I'm going to get distortion in weird shapes with the walls or my face and that sort of thing. 24 is just so versatile, and I'm getting a 1.4. So with those 2 points, after I defined what my widest is or want to be, and got the extra benefit of getting more separation, like this 1.4, it made having the 16 to 35 negligible to me. And that just is where I ended up making the decision to move on from it and not have it sit there. Ever since I got the G Master 24, I have not used it. Because if I wanted more reach, I always have Super 35, which would give me a 35mm equivalent with this lens, with a depth of field of like 1.8, 2.0, which is decent, and still less than 2.8. I might not get the compression, but it's still an equivalent of 2. So with that in mind, I just encourage you, whenever you're looking at lens options, because these are big investments and they are things that stay with you longer than the cameras, do experiment. I recommend you experiment and you try out the focal lengths and the different lenses to figure out what is that tool that's going to work for you. So if you need to start with a zoom lens to figure out what that zoom length is for you, do that. And I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, get a zoom lens and then try to notice where you're going to be at. You have to be very intentional with that, because if you don't have the intention of figuring out what that focal length is, you will end up with, like a lot of people do with the zoom lenses, just using it at the widest and then just using it at the furthest telephoto end. And then you don't explore the middle. So it's very important to explore the middle. Otherwise you won't find out where you want to go with your look, with that prime lens look that you're after, or just what is that consistent image from what you're producing. So I just wanted to share my thoughts. It's still a great lens. 16 to 35 is a great lens for a lot of people. Maybe if I was vlogging and walking around with a camera, but I'm not doing that. I'm usually doing this. So 24 has been perfect. And when I am shooting outside some B-roll, 24 has been perfect for me. So what is that focal length for you? How wide is too wide for you? So these are the things you got to think about. So I hope that helps. It's just a little reflection as I emotionally let go of this lens. I would love to have every single lens, but I know so many would just sit there because I wouldn't be using them. So gotta experiment. Thanks for watching.